It began like any other flight, routine, predictable, calm. The sky outside was painted in soft hues of twilight as Flight 472 from Denver to New York cruised at 30,000 feet. Passengers were immersed in books, movies, and quiet conversations. In seat 17A, a shy teenage girl named Lila Hart sat alone, a worn-out notebook in her lap and a pencil tucked behind her ear. At first glance, Lila didn't stand out. She was the type of person the world passed by without noticing, soft-spoken, reserved, seemingly ordinary. But sometimes, the quietest souls carry the loudest courage. Lila was flying back from her uncle's funeral. It had been a tough year, her parents had divorced, she'd switched schools, and she was constantly overwhelmed by the loudness of life. The skies were her escape. Flying reminded her of the days when her dad, once a commercial pilot, would take her to airshows, letting her sit in the cockpit of grounded planes and explaining every dial, every switch. She'd soaked in every word. While others played video games or scrolled social media, Lila was memorizing flight manuals and building flight simulators at home. An hour into the flight, everything changed. With a sudden lurch, the cabin lights flickered. The hum of the engines faded into an eerie silence. Panic spread like a virus. Oxygen masks dropped. Passengers screamed, clutched one another, or stared wide-eyed at the blinking emergency signs. A flight attendant tripped in the aisle, barely catching herself. People scrambled for answers, but none came. The pilot's voice came over the intercom, shaky and grave, "This is your captain speaking. We've lost all engine power. Please remain calm. We are attempting to restart the systems." The cabin descended into chaos. Mothers clutched children. A man was praying aloud in Spanish. A baby wailed from row 21. Amidst it all, Lila sat frozen, her breath shallow. She looked out the window. The sky was darkening fast, and the ground was far too close. Then something inside her shifted. A memory surfaced, her dad's voice echoing in her ears, "If you ever find yourself in a situation where no one knows what to do, stay calm. That's your superpower. Stay calm, and act." She stood up. "Excuse me," she whispered, then louder, "Excuse me. I need to speak to the captain. Now." A flight attendant turned, confusion written all over her face. "Sweetheart, please sit down. It's not safe." Lila's voice didn't waver. "I know how to fly a plane. My dad was a pilot. I've trained on simulators. Please, just let me try." The attendant hesitated. In any other situation, this would be laughable, a teenage girl claiming to know better. But there was something about the way Lila stood, grounded, steady, certain. Within moments, she was ushered toward the cockpit. Inside, the scene was even worse. The pilot and co-pilot were frantically flipping switches. The screens were dark. Communication was dead. Nothing responded. "We lost power to everything," the captain said, sweat pouring down his face. "We're gliding. But not for long." Lila looked around. The layout wasn't foreign to her. She'd spent hundreds of hours in similar digital replicas. With trembling fingers, she reached for the auxiliary systems. "Try a cold reboot. Bypass the generator and cycle the secondary bus," she said. The co-pilot blinked. "What? How do you?" "Just do it." They followed her lead. Seconds felt like years. Then, a flicker. A screen blinked to life. One, then another. Instruments began responding. The plane was still descending rapidly, but they now had some visibility and control. The captain stared at her in disbelief. "Kid, where did you learn this?" "At home. With my dad. Every night." With the engine still out, the only hope was an emergency landing. Lila scanned the radar, spotted an abandoned airstrip nearly 30 miles away. We can glide it in, she said. But it has to be now. With Lila assisting, guiding with precision beyond her years, the pilots executed a glide path toward the runway. The passengers were silent now, many praying, some hugging, others watching the teenage girl who had taken control. As the ground neared, the landing was rough but controlled. Tires screeched. Sparks flew. Oxygen masks bounced. Then, a thud. Silence. Then cheers. Crying. Applause. They had made it. The plane came to a stop, tilted slightly but intact. Emergency crews rushed in. No one was hurt. Reporters arrived within the hour. Lila, still in her seat in row 17, stared out the window, overwhelmed. Her hands were still trembling, but her heart was calm. A reporter asked, "How did you stay so calm? You saved over 180 lives." She looked up and softly replied, "My dad taught me to be ready for moments like this. He believed in me when no one else did. I just did what he would have done." News outlets across the globe covered the miracle landing. But the real miracle, many agreed, wasn't just the safe touchdown, it was the bravery of a quiet girl with the heart of a lion. In the weeks that followed, Lila received hundreds of letters, scholarship offers, and invitations from flight schools. But what touched her most was a small note that came from a woman who had been seated 2 rows behind her. It read, "Dear Lila, I've battled anxiety my whole life. That flight nearly broke me. But watching you stand up and take control reminded me that strength can look like calm. You changed my life in more ways than you know. Row 19, Seat D." Lila read that letter every night before bed. The world would remember her as a hero. But for Lila, the most important part wasn't the fame or the attention. It was the realization that even in moments when the world feels like it's falling from the sky, one steady voice, one act of courage, one choice to rise, can change everything. And sometimes, the ones who seem the quietest end up being the loudest echo of hope the world needs.